Hello everybody, this is RalorWolf here. I just ended up recording a 40-minute Let's Play session of this game, Kerbal Space Program, and apparently when I had switched out my headset, I did a test recording and I muted all my sounds to check that recording, and I forgot to unmute when I went to record that session. So I had no sound recorded. I had orbited Minmus and such, and it came back. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. I pretty much already deleted that video. I had the video but no audio, and that would just be too much editing for me. So instead, I will now finish my tutorial series, I guess, and do some orbiting mechanics. Let's see, and then I'll end this video and I'll do a Let's Play later on. Alright, we'll just go ahead and continue this world, get into the VAB as soon as possible. Alright, I don't have as much time to record now, so since I wasted 40 minutes, so we'll just get right back in. I will try and load up the autosave ship. This is the ship that I made in that Let's Play series. I kind of showed what was going on. I'll kind of briefly discuss this, and we'll use this one for this tutorial now. Alright, this we started with the basic capsule parachute decoupler. The SAS unit I have here is the computer controls here in control. This advanced SAS, I'll briefly discuss this stuff. The SAS modules are a set of modules that basically have a computer control in them. The normal SAS doesn't really control much. It has an interior gyroscope that distributes weight in different places to help align your ship and keep it flying straight. The advanced SAS that I put on here, this one here, does the same thing, but it also controls any control surfaces or vectoring rockets that you put on to help control you as well. So the normal one's kind of a passive SAS. The advanced is an active one. And this rocket I have in the middle is a vectoring engine. It can turn the nozzle a little bit to help control your ship. The outer ones are the bigger rockets on this first page. They don't vector, but they give a little more power. So that's why I have those on the exterior tanks. These are called radial decouplers. Instead of decoupling a stack like this to separate a stage, this separates stages out to the side. The next thing I did after adding these other fuel tanks and engines was I put fuel lines in here. This runs fuel from these outer tanks to the inner tank. So I can run all these engines at the same time, and when I decouple these stages, when they run out of fuel, I will still have these fuel tanks full. Because instead of using these fuel tanks for this middle engine, it's sucking fuel from these outer tanks to the inner tanks. You can see the direction of the fuel travel by these little arrows. You place these with the fuel line, you pick the engine or the fuel tank you want to take fuel from, and then you click on the engine or the fuel tank you want it to go to. And you can see the arrow showing the way the fuel's flowing. Alright, get rid of that. The other thing I had to do was, by default, it sets this engine up here so it doesn't fire until this stage gets activated in the center. So you drag that fuel tank out to the bottom, and now it'll fire with the other engines. Alright, so we'll launch this. Alright, we're now on the launch pad, and once the physics engine settles in, it just did, we will throttle up and hit spacebar to activate the rockets. Now you see all four engines that I have on here are firing at the same time. The fuel, it shows what fuel is available for each engine. So these three are the outer engines. They're all sucking fuel out of their fuel tanks. This middle one is kind of deceptive. It's showing the fuel from these three bottom fuel tanks that it's taking its fuel from, it's not actually showing the fuel tanks that it's connected to. Once these run out of fuel, you'll see I'll break them away, and these fuel tanks will still be full. In fact, if you right-click on a fuel tank, you can see how much fuel is in them, and oxidizer. See, these are still full, these are draining, and these will drain when it gets down. Now when you're flying, you want to remain pointed as straight up as possible at the beginning, because when you're in this thicker part of the atmosphere at the bottom here, you have a lot of drag. The atmosphere is really thick, so you want to get out of this area as quick as possible by going straight up. Once you get out of this lower part of the atmosphere, you'll be able to start your gravity turn, or your turn towards your orbit. Now, for us, we're going to want to rotate to the 90-degree mark when we start our turn, which I guess we can start now. Take off computer controls and start along this 90-degree line. Basically, this points you to the east, I believe. Oh, as you can see, we just ran out of fuel in these outer fuel tanks, so we will hit spacebar to eject those. And now we're running on these fuel tanks, which are still full. Well, now it's starting to drain. Now, the reason you want to go on the 90-degree mark is it will align you with the direction of the planet's rotation. It'll get you in a quicker orbit. It's kind of a more natural orbit to go around that way. You can see this symbol up here is our apoapsis. It shows us the highest point of our orbit. We'll go ahead and cut our engines because it's up to almost 200 kilometers, which is a pretty good orbit. Now, once you get your apoapsis where you want it, you'll want to cut your engines and just kind of glide up to that apoapsis. It kind of shows your path your ship's going to take. So we're climbing still. Now, to circularize your orbit, you're going to want to fire in the direction of the horizon, or in the direction you're traveling when you get at your apoapsis, to speed up and get your orbit. You can click this arrow down at the bottom to bring up your nav ball, and it shows we're still pointed at our velocity vector, the direction we're heading, which is at an angle. This velocity vector will slowly go down towards the horizon as we reach our apoapsis, because once you reach this highest point, you're basically going to have zero velocity in the up and down direction. You're just going to be traveling sideways, and you're going to start falling back to the planet. Now, you want to start your orbital burn, your orbital insertion burn, just before the apoapsis, and you want to keep the apoapsis in front of you. Basically, you want to start it while you're still climbing, and you don't want to start falling while you're burning, or else you're just wasting fuel. Now, you can click on an area of your orbit that you want to do something, and you can add a maneuver point. This brings up a circle and directions in which you can burn. So to finish this orbit, we'll want to go prograde, which is the symbol there. Click and drag that out, and you see a dotted line appear where your orbit's going to be after this maneuver. It'll continue out, and eventually it'll get to a point where you see a periapsis on the other side. Right there. You see this is a symbol appeared here. That's our periapsis. The apoapsis is the highest point in our orbit. The periapsis is the lowest point in our orbit. You want to get that number about equal to your apoapsis. This is where our apoapsis is going to be after this maneuver. It is about 200 kilometers. Actually, we can slide this point a little closer to the apoapsis. If you click and drag this, you can move this whole maneuver around your orbit. So you want to get that as close to the apoapsis as possible. And then drag that out a little more until the numbers match up about. It doesn't have to be perfect, especially on this first try. We'll get it as close as possible. Okay, that's 191, this is 195, so we should be pretty good here. Now, the way you do a maneuver is you line up your heading indicator to your maneuver indicator, which is the blue line, or the blue reticle on your nav ball. So once you get lined up there, you turn on your SAS to lock you in place. And now we're lined up with this maneuver that we made. It shows you your time to maneuver here. I'm going to go ahead and start burning because I'm getting at that point. But it shows you your time to this maneuver. It shows your estimated burn time. And this number here shows your delta V you need to complete the maneuver. So it's basically showing we need over 1,000 meters per second change to meet our new orbit that we want. Now it assumes that you do this all in 1 second. Like it's an instantaneous burn, so you kind of have to adjust and burn a little earlier than your maneuver to even it out some. It doesn't have to be perfect, but some things that you do will need to be closer to perfect, so you want to time this out just right. So this shows that we're 30 seconds past our maneuver point. We still have to do 300 more meters per second change. And at this point, this is when I start actually looking at my real numbers. So see, my real apoapsis is here at 200,000. Here's our periapsis coming around, stop our engines. And then we can cancel this maneuver. And we're in a decent orbit now. Our periapsis is 164. Our apoapsis is 243. Now the next thing I want to show you is some of the other things you can do to change your orbit around. Basically anything you do here will affect the opposite side of your orbit. So if I made a maneuver, say here, well, I'll go ahead and do it more accurately. It's most efficient to do maneuvers at your apoapsis or periapsis, depending on what you're trying to do. Because this is either the point where you're moving the fastest at your periapsis or your slowest at your apoapsis. So we'll set a maneuver up, and you can see different ways of how your orbit's going to change. If we if we fire in the prograde direction, you'll see that our orbit gets bigger and bigger, centered on the opposite side of the orbit. So it widens out. You can get that out to the moon's orbit, or all the way out to the Minmus's orbit, or into interplanetary space. Now if you bring that back in, you'll see that if we go retrograde, we slow down our orbit, and you'll see that this is how you go back to the planet. You fire retrograde in the opposite direction you're moving, and eventually it shows you landing, and you can take that as far as killing all of your orbital speed and going straight down towards the planet. This is the way I normally do my landings, like at a moon or something like that, where I basically just go straight down. I've already killed all my horizontal speed, so it's a lot easier to land. We'll cancel this maneuver though, and add another one to show you one other way you can change your orbit. Now some people try and fly directly out from the planet, or directly in towards the planet, but those do some weird things to your orbit, and it's not efficient in any way, and you're probably never going to want to go towards one of these blue lines. If you fly straight away from the planet, you can kind of see what it does to our orbit here. Weird stuff, really inefficient, doesn't really make a lot of sense. Flying straight towards the planet does the opposite. So you see this would bring us into the planet, but in order to land, we would need to be doing about 500 meters per second change, whereas if we cancel this and show retrograde burns, it will take us, let's see, it'll only take us about 120 meters per second. So it's a lot more efficient to fly retrograde to land. And that's my oven timer going off. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. That's why I didn't have much time to play right now, because I've got some bread I'm baking, and it just finished. But I'll just finish this up real quick. The other way to change your orbit. Let's just get that back to about where we're at now. Are these pink ones. This goes north and south, respectively. This will incline your orbit this way or that way. Now your orbit changes based on the point you're at. It kind of rotates around your starting point. So you see we started here. It changes our orbit, but it still crosses where we're at. It's not exactly what people would expect, or some people if you haven't had much physics training or orbital mechanics training, but it makes sense to those who do. You can rotate around the other way by shooting south. It'll tilt your orbit in that direction. That's useful for when you're trying to get to bodies that are on a different orbital plane, like the outer moon Minmus. It's on kind of a wonky plane. Now if you want to line up with this, the easiest way with this maneuver node system is to click on Minmus and click Set as Target. It highlights the orbit and shows what are called ascending and descending nodes. It's these little yellow markers here, descending node. It shows minus 32 degrees. Now I think that's doing it from our, that's using our maneuver node. So we'll cancel our maneuver node. Now it shows the real one to our orbit. So it's showing a 7-degree offset. Now these lines that it shows, these dotted lines, and these markers, the nodes that it shows, are the exact point where our orbits meet. So at this point, our orbits cross. So this is the point where you would want to change the tilt of your orbit. So if we click on this descending node, add maneuver, and fly north, it will tilt our orbit. You can do that slowly, and once you see these indicators kind of flip sideways, that's about as close as you're going to get. It should now say, negative 0.1 degrees. So now our orbit would only be 0.1 degree off. So if you wanted to complete this maneuver, you would line up your heading to this blue marker for the maneuver. I overshot. I like to do that a lot. Okay, you would line up with this marker and lock it in place around there, and then once you got to this maneuver, you would fire until this yellow bar runs all the way out and you're there, and then you'd be in about the same incline here. Then you can maneuver out to its orbit and find it. We'll go ahead and do that too. Right. So if we're there, we could fire all the way out to its orbit. Not too far. And it shows your point, your closest approach. When we're there, it'll be here. So you can rock that around your orbit. Well, if I had more time, I could show you. Like, we'd first do the maneuver to get in line with its plane, and then we could adjust it out here, and then move it around our orbit until our icon met up with the moon there. And it would show you how to get there. Alright, well that's all I have time for in this tutorial. I've got to go check on my bread. So I will be back probably with a Let's Play soon. Look forward to that. And I appreciate you watching my videos. I will be back later.